on the internet. So it's Swami Monamurti here, talking about who influenced me with yoga over the years. So this is part two. The first video that I made a couple of days ago was from 1968 up to 1988. So this video will carry on from that, from 88 up till this year, 2023. So with this video, I concluded the last video just talking about Swami Satchidananda and how he was guided to go to Rikya in Jharkhand, which previously was Bihar. So, and that's where he settled and went into seclusion again, practicing his Paramahansa sadhanas. So during those years that followed, I mentioned previously, my personal life went into a bit of a free fall. And also because Swami Satchidananda disappeared, and I did hear along the grapevine that, he had renounced all of his disciples and ashrams all over the world, and that was it. So I didn't have any contact with the Australian ashram headquarters of Bihar School of Yoga until 1993. My father got sick and I visited the Manly Yoga Ashram, which was a branch of the headquarters in Australia. And I met a Swami there, and he just returned from India from doing a sannyas training course with Swami Niranjan, who he told me about extensively, that Swami Niranjan had taken over from Swami Satchidananda. So I didn't know anything about that. I didn't know anything about Swami Niranjan. I only knew about Swami Satchidananda, although when I take my mind back to when I was in Mongia in 1988, I do recall seeing Swami Niranjan leaving the ashram, and someone said that's Swami Niranjan, and he actually went to Australia for a brief visit. So I actually didn't meet Swami Niranjan in 1988. So 93, that Swami Dayananda was at Manly Ashram, he was telling me about the sannyas training course and Swami Niranjan, who was really simply amazing, and he'd taken over as being the guru at the ashram in Mongia. So I was very happy to hear about that. So I went to the ashram in, I was actually Mangrove Mountain Ashram, the headquarters in New South Wales of Satchidananda Yoga or Bihar Yoga in Australia. So I met Swami Dayananda again, and he was glad to see me. So this is still in 1993, and he put his arm on me, and we went into the kitchen. And when he put his arm on me, I felt like I left my body. When I connected with that energy that he was carrying, that I was missing because of what was going on in those years from 88 till 93. So a lot happened in those years, and I reconnected with that energy, the Shakti, which was truly inside this tradition of Bihar School of Yoga, from Swami Shivananda, Swami Satchidananda, Swami Niranjan, and now Swami Satsangi. So I reconnected with the ashram, and that was really, really great. I was really grateful for that, and to see some of my guru bhais who I was a Karma Sannyasin disciple at that stage. So I met up with a lot of other people, and I was hearing whispers about Swami Niranjan coming out the next year, which was 94, because he hadn't been to Australia since 88, when I didn't see him, because I was in the ashram in Mongia. So the next influence in my life came when I met Barbara White, who's an Australian from Tasmania, who I mentioned in one of my YouTube videos that she was directed by Babaji to go to Adya Bookshop. There's someone I want you to meet. So that was the next person I met in 1993. So Babaji spoke to Barbara. Barbara told me about Babaji and sent me some mandalas or yantras, and I showed one of them in that video. I've got it just over here behind Swamiji. And I've also, they're all in the first book that I've written. So apart from meeting Barbara White, who's a real mystic and influenced heavily by Sri Aurobindo and Babaji, so I had some correspondence arrive in 1993 from Barbara, and they also, I've scanned some excerpts into my book, so I'm sharing those as well. So also in 1993, I met Shaibendu Lahiri, who's the great grandson of the great Kriya Yogi Lahiri Mahasaya from Varanasi, from India. So, and I took initiation from Shaibendu Lahiri in Sydney into the Kriya Yoga tradition of Lahiri Mahasaya via Babaji. So a lot of things happened towards the end of 1993, and in that time, I wrote to Swami Niranjan after hearing all about him. I wrote to Swami Niranjan and really poured my heart out. I think it was about a 3-page handwritten letter. This is before I got on the computer or anything like that. So it's a handwritten letter I wrote to Swami Niranjan asking him, what should I do? Should I come to India? You know, I've got unfinished business here, children, etc. in Australia. Should I stay here? And I received a reply. I was very happy to receive a reply from Swami Niranjan, and I was asked to come to, if I could, come to the World Yoga Convention, which was being held in Mongia at the Bihar School of Yoga. But unfortunately, I couldn't attend that because I was poor. Again, I've always had a problem with money. So obviously when you finish relationships, you more or less go down to zero and start again. So I've been in that situation a few times. So in 1994, also before I get into 1994, I'll mention that Barbara White, the mystical lady that I met from Hobart, Tasmania, she mentioned in her correspondence about Kundalini and about the new science, of Kundalini. So I just sort of put that away in my mind, didn't really think any more about it. And then the next year, Swami Niranjan came out to Australia, and it was fantastic. It was at the headquarters in Australia, the ashram. I was up there for a month and met Swami Niranjan. And it was an amazing thing when I met Swami Niranjan. One of the acharyas, there was a group of about 50 people surrounding Swami Niranjan, and he was walking across a courtyard, and I was walking in the opposite direction towards him with this acharya, and the acharya stopped in front of Swami Niranjan and said, Swami Niranjan, here's someone I want you to meet. This is Mona Murti. And I pranamed, and Swami Niranjan did the same thing, and I put my hands around Swamiji's hands, and I was so grateful to meet him. And Swami Niranjan said that Mona Murti and I have met before. So that was quite interesting. And the satsangs that followed during that month were just mind-blowing. Swami Niranjan's fantastic yogi. And he was a total inspiration for me during those years. And I was really totally embracing everything that was coming through Swami Niranjan. And in 1995, again, Swami Niranjan came out to Australia again at the ashram. I was there for another month. While I was there, I took sannyas initiation from Swami Niranjan. Paramahansa Swami Niranjananda Saraswati is the spiritual successor of Swami Satchidananda. So I took sannyas initiation from Swami Niranjan, and Swami Niranjan, during some of his satsangs, he was talking about the Kundalini Research Project, which the previous year, in 1994, he handed out brochures about this project in India that George Tompkins, who was also giving a satsang at the ashram in 94, spoke about it. So I've still got that letter today. And I was very interested in becoming a participant of that project. So when Swami Niranjan came out again in 1995, he mentioned it again briefly, and also mentioned how yoga was changing, and the development of Bihar Yoga Bharati, the university or deemed university, which was starting up later that year in the ashram at Gangadarshan. So I made my mind up then. It was a 4-month certificate course. It was the inaugural course of Bihar Yoga Bharati. And I made my mind up then. I wanted to attend it. I'm going to India again. I haven't been there for 7 years, and I really wanted to see Swami Satchidananda again, who was living in seclusion. So more than anything, I wanted to see Swami Satchidananda and also be around Swami Niranjan and do that course. So I saved up my money as much as I could. Funny situation occurred. I was doing some work with my brother, who's an electrical contractor, driving a VW Combi, and I had a head-on car accident. And the car in front of me caught fire, and I was trapped inside the Combi. The front of the Combi was crushed back onto me, and I had bruises all up my ribs and everything like that. But they took me to the hospital with the guy that was in the other car that was burning. And they said, well, it's amazing you haven't got your legs. You've still got your legs, sorry. You've still got your legs, because the front of the Combi was crushed and the bull bar was pushed right back onto, even the steering wheel was pushed back onto my chest. So what happened through that accident, I got enough insurance money to pay for my trip to India. So I went to India, and while I was there doing the course, which was a fantastic course, I met a lot of people there, the teachers, the swamis, the sannyasins. Some I remembered from before in 1988 were my teachers again in 1995. And part of the course, towards the end of the course, it was Sat Chandi Mahayagya was being conducted out at Rikya, where Swami Satchidananda was living, about 6 or 8 hour drive to where Swami Satchidananda was living. So I hadn't been there before and definitely wanted to see my guru, Swami Satchidananda. So all the people of the course, we stopped the course and we all went out to the Rikya Peeth ashram, where Swami Satchidananda was living in seclusion, practicing his sadhana. We all practiced our karma yoga out there. And I ended up with a great job. I was like one of Swami Satchidananda's security guys, keeping the crowd back, because there was hundreds and thousands of people coming every day trying to get close to Swami Satchidananda. And we had barriers around him, and I was one of the security or crowd control guys or swamis that were keeping people back past the barriers throughout this yagya, and it was fantastic. And luckily, I've still got 6 videos, VCR, mind you, VCR videos of that yagya. So apart from seeing Paramahansaji again in 1995, just towards the end of the course, I took some leave for about 4 or 5 days with a friend of mine, Jagdish, and we went on a little journey because we nearly finished. I think we had our exams, or just before the exams, we went to Bodh Gaya, where Buddha was enlightened, sat under the Bodhi tree, and had some great experiences there too. Met some amazing Buddhist monks. And then after that, we went to Varanasi, Jagdish and myself. And when we arrived there, it was Christmas Eve, 1995. And I looked up the phone exchange, and I asked the operator, there's a funny phone system, I asked the operator, I didn't have any directories, could you connect me with Shai Bindu Lahiri? So she actually connected me to Shai Bindu Lahiri, also my guru, Kriya Yoga guru. And Shai Bindu said, yes, fantastic, come over and see me tomorrow morning. So next morning happened to be Christmas Day. So we stayed near, I think it was Kedar Ghat, in a motel on the Ganges at Varanasi. And Jagdish and I walked down, we didn't know where we were going, walked up through hundreds of ghats, the temples along the river, past Manika Manikartika Ghat, where the burning ghats, where they burn all the corpses and everything like that. And kept going along past all these temples, and we ended up Chausati Ghat, I think it is, a little tiny narrow laneway that comes up from the steps on the river. And we went up there and along this little narrow laneway, and the feeling just got stronger and stronger and stronger. And then at the end of the ghat, or not at the end of the laneway, there's a left turn, and there was a big sign over the lane where it said 100-year celebration of Lahiri Mahasay's Mahasamadhi. So we actually went down the laneway a little bit further, and here we are at Lahiri Mahasay's actual house, which is called Satyalok. So I rang the doorbell, and Shai Bindu opened the door and invited us in, and it was just fantastic. We were the only ones there, and he showed us through his home, the temple, the family temple inside the compound or the house, Satyalok, where his father and grandfather and great-grandfather, the statues there, and he showed us through all the some ashes of Lahiri Mahasay. And we sat inside a meditation room, had photos of all the Kriya Yoga masters from that lineage of Lahiri Mahasay, the great Kriya Yogis, the masters. And we sat in there with Shai Bindu for a while, discussing certain things and meditating in that room. And that was fantastic, really fantastic. So I won't get into that any further. So in 1996, I was still getting more involved with the ashram in Australia. So in 1996, there was a World Yoga Convention to be held in Sydney at Hordern Pavilion, which was really fantastic. There's about 1,500 people there. There's over 1,000 people there every day. I met Dr. John Mumford, Swami Ananda Kapila Saraswati, who from that day again, also became a very close friend and also later a guru of mine. John Mumford, I went to a book signing where John Mumford was signing, I think it was Chakra and Kundalini workbook, and he signed that for me, and we had a little discussion, and I gave Swamiji my address, and I contacted him after that. And from those years onwards, I kept in very close contact with Swamiji, John Mumford, from 1999 until 2020 was the last time I saw Swamiji in the flesh, or apart from his funeral, which I attended in February this year. So apart from John Mumford, at the World Yoga Convention, I met Swami Janakananda Saraswati from Sweden. Well, he's Danish, but his main ashram is in Sweden, and he's a big guru over in Europe. And also, you could say that John Mumford and Swami Janakananda were Swami Satyananda's most senior Swami disciples outside of India. And I got some information of Swami Janakananda about through his Bindu journals, magazines. I got some information about the 3-month Kriya Yoga retreats that were held every year at his ashram in Sweden. So that was really fantastic. Another fantastic person that I didn't meet in person, but he gave a fantastic speech there, Dr. Hiroshi Motoyama, who's a famous scientist, PhD. So everyone knows of his work, obviously, with Kirlian photography. And Dr. Hiroshi Motoyama is also a disciple of Swami Satyananda's. And if you read his book on the chakras, Swami Satyananda wrote the foreword, so you get the idea then. So Dr. Hiroshi Motoyama is a disciple of Swami Satyananda's as well. So they're those 3 fantastic people I met there. Dr. Hiroshi Motoyama, Swami Janakananda, Dr. John Mumford. And I've got all the video, the audio recordings of Dr. Hiroshi Motoyama's satsangs, of which I've listened over and over to about Kundalini, which were fantastic. So that's 1996. So 1997, towards the end of 1997, I went to visit India again, and I was one of there was a big group of about 80 Aussies that went, 2 or 3 group leaders. I was one of the group leaders. We took about 80 odd people from Australia over to see Swami Satyananda, Paramahansaji, who's in Rikia ashram. So that was an amazing experience. And on the way, actually at Calcutta, we stayed in a hotel. I had a really amazing experience in that hotel. It was something about evolution, and it just one whole night, it was a real astral experience. It was just totally amazing. So the next day we boarded the train, and we ended up seeing Swamiji the next day or 2. So we attended another Satchanda Chandi Mahayagya out at Rikia ashram, and then we took all the buses back to Mongia through the night. We arrived back at the ashram, BR School of Yoga, which was fantastic. And I did a couple of courses there, Kriya Yoga course, and followed by a Tattva Shuddhi course, and then headed to Nepal. So I spent a month in India, and I was heading to Nepal, back to Calcutta on the train with the group, then said goodbye to the group, then into Kathmandu, which was really, really amazing. I met some amazing gurus there. and one in particular was Yogi Narahari Nath. Yogi Narahari Nath is a great yogi saint of Nepal. I didn't know at that stage, but I met him and some of his disciples, and through an interpreter, I had to have an interpreter because he didn't speak English. We communicated and had a really close connection. And during those meetings with Yogi Naraharinath, I should say that Swami or Yogi Naraharinath is the head, or he was the head of the Nath Sampradaya or lineage in Nepal and also India. So Yogi Naraharinath invited me out to his jungle ashram in central Nepal or central southern Nepal. So I thought that'd be fantastic, going to spend some more time with Yogi Naraharinath. So I went to Pokhara, flew out to Pokhara and had a fantastic little holiday there, and then got the train back to Narayangat, which is close by. Sorry, got the bus back. Amazing ride. If you've ever been to Badrinath on the bus, you know how the cliffs are overhanging the road and you're going through there and the cliffs are above. Well, that's a bit like that on the way from Pokhara back to Kathmandu the other way. It's really dangerous roads. And like the road, which I also went up to the Tibetan border, Kadari, really dangerous road. And that was an amazing trip too. And I had some amazing experiences. Up at Kadari, I had a vision of Shiva, and that was amazing. And his third eye was open vertically, and he was talking to me astrally with a yogini next to him. So that was a full-on inspiration. Shiva, and then Yogi Naharanath, I met with him again back at Devgat, which is the most beautiful place. And it's a very famous place written about in the, I think it's the Skanda Purana. And apart from meeting Yogi Naharanath again out there and spending some time in his jungle ashram, that was really amazing. And also, I went walkabout one or 2 days out exploring that area and visited the cave of Vasishta, Vasishta's cave, and also the cave of Sita's cave. And it's right on this cliff face, you know, like 100 or 200 feet above the river, a raging river. I think it's Kali Gandaki River, raging river from Tibet flows underneath, and the cliff sits up like this, and right inside this, you walk down through these back of these ashrams and down into these caves. Now that was really amazing. I've got photos of that. And then I went back to Kathmandu and met up with Yogi Naraharinath again. And his interpreter was there, and he asked me, I spoke to Yogi Naraharinath, and he asked me, do I have any questions? So I'm thinking of all these questions. So this is the ashram is built where the great yogi Goraknath actually meditated. So there's a dhuni or fire breathing. It's been burning there non-stop. It's still there, burning 24/7. So Yogi Naraharinath, he read my mind. I'm thinking of a question. I'm thinking, well, maybe I could ask him something about Babaji. So I didn't even get a chance to say anything. And then he started talking to the interpreter and telling me where Babaji is living in Tibet, and the actual coordinates of where Babaji is living in Tibet, and a number of other things I asked him. And actually those coordinates, I've written about a whole chapter about Yogi Naraharanath in my book on Kriya Yoga, my second book. So I'm disclosing that, and also where Babaji lives in Tibet. Could it be the Cedar Ashram, Yan Gunj, Shangri-La? Well, we'll have to find out by actually going there, or going there astrally, because it's protected astrally as well. So after, almost concluding my trip with Yogi Naraharanath, I took initiation from him as well. And Yogi Naraharanath wanted me to actually stay in his ashram for 10 years. He asked me to stay with him, but I couldn't. I had many things I had to do back in Australia, young children as well. So I had to say goodbye, and he gave me some contact details of people in Australia and said he was going to come out to Australia. So I returned to Australia, and I was really, really fired up, and I actually started teaching yoga full time from when I got back. I became a affiliate, Satchidananda Yoga Academy affiliate. I was one of the first affiliates, and started teaching professionally every day of the week around the Shoalhaven area, and started my website. And through that, got in contact with a lot of people. Bihar School of Yoga started contacting me also, because I had even before my satchamyoga.com website was going, myself and Octavian Salvatore, who's a great friend of mine, we were hosting and promoting a site called Swami Niranjan Virtual Spiritual Center, which was very, very popular, and also Satcham Yoga Center was very, very popular at the time. So between the years 1998 up until probably 2005, I had a very close association with Bihar School of Yoga and Satchidananda Yoga Academy in Australia. And Swami Niranjan, visited from 1994, probably up until 2000, annually from 1994, almost annually up until about 2005 was the last time I visited, because I dropped being an affiliate in 2004, closed my yoga studio in 2003 and 2005. So just after 2005, I'll move up to about 2009. So 2009, I heard the news that Swami Satchidananda had taken Mahasamadhi in December 2009 by Swami Ananda Kapila. And that was really devastating. I was really upset, sad. Swamiji and I were sort of consoling each other, and because Swami Ananda Kapila was very close to Swami Satchidananda. I don't know if many people know, but he thought the world of Swami Satchidananda. And we wrote a couple of letters together back to Bihar School of Yoga in 2009. Bihar School of Yoga would also have those letters. Swami Ananda Kapila's written part of those letters. So in 2009, after Swami Satchidananda died, and I was pretty devastated, I wrote to Pilot Baba, who I knew Swami Satchidananda respected a lot, because he actually went to visit him when he was at the Kumbh Mela in 1989, when he was a mendicant walking around India, visiting the Siddharthas. So I wrote to Pilot Baba, and I received to my surprise, I received a book back, which was his autobiography, which was Himalaya Unveils Mystery, which was a fantastic book. So he's sent me this book back. And so Pilot Baba, by reading that book over and over and over, probably about 5 times, I started having some astral visits from Pilot Baba, which started, I think, in 2013. So I'll just jump back to 2010. In 2010, so Swami Satchidananda died in 2009, Master Marty. 2010, I was living in Sydney, Darling Point. I was living in Darling Point for a year. I was living in, had a place in Gosford and an apartment there. So I was living down there at Darling Point. I met Shankar Dev, Swami Shankar Dev, who was actually living in the same street just down the road. And we had a good connection, Swami Shankar Dev and myself. But I started having some experience, really intense inner experiences related to Kundalini. And I made my mind up then that I'm going to go change my life. I'm going to resign from my job. I had a good operations management job for Lend-Lease, multinational. So I resigned from that job, shocked everybody. And I said, I'm going to attend a spiritual course in Sweden. So January 2011, I dropped everything and went to Sweden and did the 3-month intensive sadhana retreat there, which had, as part of the retreat, right in the middle of the 3 months, is 33 days of silence where we were initiated into the Tantric Kriya Yoga system as taught by Swami Satchidananda to Swami Janakananda back in 1968. And in the same sequence of Kriyas that Swami Satchidananda taught from 68 up to 73, when Swami Satchidananda stopped teaching Kriya Yoga. And also Swami Ananda Kapila was also there at the 1973 Kriya course with Swami Janakananda. So they received his last teachings on Kriya, Swami Satchidananda's teachings on Kriya. So that was 2011. I came up fully charged. I had so many experiences through that course and had some real amazing astral experiences. And for those that have followed some of my other videos that I've posted about Babaji channeling messages in 2020, I've posted some channeling messages. So from that Kriya course, I started getting contacted astrally from a number of different beings, you might say, and having different types of experiences, which I talked about in that channeling session with Babaji. There's a 7-part video or audio recordings that I've posted on YouTube and Facebook a week or 2 ago. So 2012, I went to see Swami Ananda Kapila again and got his full blessings before I headed off to India again after a break of many years. So it was 1997 up until 2012. So it's 14 and a half years I hadn't been to India. Lots of things had happened and I was living the corporate sort of life still. And 2012, I went to India and met up with some friends in Kundalini Research Project, KRP. Kundalini Research Project, or this is a proposed Kundalini Research Project, which was talked about by Gopi Krishna. So read Gopi Krishna's books or watch his videos. I've just posted a 4.5-hour satsang with Gopi Krishna on Facebook. He outlines everything the need for this project. And Swami Naranjan himself outlined it in '94 when he was there in Australia. So here it is, 2012. We're touring around the Himalayas, Char Dham Yatra, myself, Bina Paul, Deepthi Reddy at the time, and Aaron Sinha. So the group of us, the four of us from the Kundalini Research Project, we toured around the Himalayas and we went back to Delhi. We had the official launch there, met Dr. Tripathi there, Dr. Ram Naresh Tripathiji, who's recently passed away, and so has Aaron, sadly, a year later. So that, and then I went to Rajasthan and had many experiences up there, met up with some more Kundalini Research Project colleagues. So I had another month there in India. So I returned back to Australia, and then I went back to India again and spent October and November in India, in Rajasthan, and I experienced Rajasthan, so I really fell in love with Rajasthan, and that was really amazing. And then I returned back at the end of 2012. 2013, I went back to India again for 4 months this time, to Rajasthan, to Udaipur. Stayed there, and during that trip I met another yogi who was a very close friend of a friend of mine who was the previous president of the Kundalini Research Project in India. So this yogi's name is Ajay Patel. He's from Madhya Pradesh. So we got the taxi from Udaipur to Madhya Pradesh, this little village, and we went out there. So it took about 2 days of constant driving in the taxi to reach there, because it's a long way. And we arrived out at Ajay's village, and I was very much honoured to be the first Westerner to ever visit this village in Madhya Pradesh. And it was fantastic. And we met up with Ajay, and he's totally devoted to the Kundalini Research Project, and he offered himself up to be studied by scientists or anybody. So this is a real yogi. He's not sitting in an ashram. He's living as a sadhu with his home and family, at his home and family. He's a real yogi. Paramahansa in my books. So this is 2013. And also, my next trip to India was 2018. And for 1 month. And during that trip, I was being inspired again by Babaji. Babaji was inspiring me astrally. I had many experiences. I haven't got time to talk about it because I'd be here talking about my experiences. So 2018, I returned to India, and Babaji's really heavily inspiring me when I got back, and he gave me an astral initiation. Because in 2017, I've talked about it in previous videos, he asked me to make a video, which I did 5 or 6 years ago, and up until 2 weeks ago, that's the last video I made, nearly 6 years ago. So up until I was getting lots of astral visits from Pilot Baba as well. blessings, even on Guru Purnima, and also Babaji. So 2020, Swami Anandakapila wrote the commendation for my first book, which was really amazing. So that was March 2020. And I might say that, from the time I met Swami Anandakapila, I visited Swamiji from the time I met him in 1996. From 1998, I visited Swamiji every year on Guru Purnima. So 2020, I spoke to Swamiji on the phone rather than visiting him this year. I was right in the middle of doing some work and I couldn't make it down. I'm in Foster Tuncurry in the mid-north coast. I couldn't make it down to Sydney to see him. So we spoke on the phone. And we spoke lots from probably about 2014 onwards. We spoke regularly on the phone a lot about many different things. So in 2020, Swamiji unfortunately suffered a stroke, which is a severely debilitating condition. Everyone will know about it by now. Swamiji had a stroke. So as soon as I found out in October, I rushed down to the hospital to see Swamiji, and he was still in the hospital. And I told Swamiji I loved him, and his son was there right next to him. And I said, Swamiji, I love you. And he said he loved me too. And he said, it's all Maya. So I understood what he meant. So that was the last time I actually saw Swamiji alive, although we did speak on the phone when he was staying with his family between that period of time up until this year when he actually passed away. So Swamiji died on Mahashivaratri in February. Mahashivaratri in February. Swamiji, Dr. John Mumford, Swami Anandakapila, he passed away. And I attended his funeral where Swamiji received the Vedic ritual rites of his funeral with his close friends and family. So that's just a recap following on to the first video up and from 1988 up until this year, 2023, so it's 35 years. And the previous video was 68 to 88, which is 20 years. So that's about 55 years. So I just wanted to end this now. And this is 49 minutes. So I hope everyone has a good day. So I just wanted to clear this up, go on record for everything. And my next videos, I'll be talking about yoga only and making it interactive every full moon. So I'll be doing a live stream. Okay, hurry on. Bye-bye.